I'm going to call to order the Old Bridge Township Planning Board meeting. If you'd all stand and salute the flag, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by promptly posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, date, location, and the agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune, and filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk. Mr. Lauer?
Here.
Mr. Monacus?
Here.
Mr. Murigi?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Lenning?
Here.
Mr. Luca?
Here.
Chairman Cannon?
Here.
Ms. Carey?
Here.
Mr. Long? Here. Mr. Dargy?
Present.
Mr. Renzo?
Here.
Ms. Drum? Here. Mr. Hart?
Okay, application 03-19P, Mount Hebron Cemetery.
Here on that matter, George Doherty. Say Mount Hebron Cemetery?
Yes, yes.
I'm here with Mr. Bowler. We're here because there was, at the last time we were here, there was some question about whether we had a complete list of waiver requests. And we're here with the help of your planner. I think we've sorted through that.
Okay, do you want to just introduce yourself, please?
George Doherty, Casson Doherty, I'm sorry, Lawrenceville, New Jersey.
Okay.
Vina, do you want to just?
So this application was in front of the board a couple of weeks back, and the board granted most of the waivers that were sought, except for the soil borings. But at that time, they missed asking for waivers on sewer, sanitary profiles, and I think it was water main and services. I'm perfectly okay granting those waivers because this is just an 1,800 square feet addition to the existing crematorium.
Okay, so this is just to grant the 6 additional waivers.
Right, I think
Right.
the report indicates the recommendation is to grant the additional waivers, but to still require that they submit a tree removal plan and application as a condition of approval. So not for pre-application completeness, but for completeness after the fact.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have anything that you wanted to ask or add, or? That's it?
I think we've completed it.
Pretty clear. Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions or comments? Okay, so can I have a motion to grant the 6 additional waivers that are listed on?
I'll move it. Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Marucci, seconded by Mr. Schmidt. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Monacus?
Yes.
Mr. Murigi?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Luca?
Yes.
Chairman Cannon?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was quick.
Quicker than the last time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, application 14-19P, OBMUA Brunetti Water Tower.
Evening, members of the board, Bob McGowan representing the OBMUT. TUA.
Okay, and this is another application for waivers. Vina, do you want to?
Yeah. So the OPMUA is actually applying for a preliminary and final major site plan and subdivision application with C variances. This is actually a part of the Oaks at Glenwood. The property that is going to be subdivided is going to be approximately 0.5 acres, and its sole purpose is to build a water tank on it. So they need a few waivers like community impact, aquifer recharge, and we are okay with all the waivers that have been requested. They will be required to submit a tree removal and application, the tree removal application at a later stage.
Any question?
No, I mean, that covers it. As Vina said, this is part of the old, the Oaks development. It's the water tower to serve that, plus additional areas to the township. All of the studies impacting this area have been submitted as part of the Oaks application. This is just to put up a water tower.
Okay. All right, does anybody on the board have any questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion to grant the waivers requested?
I'll move it. I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Board, thank you, and I understand we'll have a special meeting to hear this application in September.
We'll see. Okay, we have the minutes for July 2nd, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Second.
By Mr. Lauer. Second. By Mr. Luca. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Luca,
Yes.
Chairman Kennedy.
Yes. Okay, discussion regarding switching the meeting from December 3rd to December 10th?
It's no longer, that's
We
been
don't need
removed.
that?
We don't need that.
Okay, we have resolutions. First one is 47-18P, Edward Testino LLC, preliminary and final site plan with C variances. Can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Marucci. Second by Mr. Schmidt. Roll call, please.
Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Luca,
Yes.
Chairman Kennedy.
Yes. Resolution 03-19P, Shannon Leo, minor subdivision with C variances. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Luca, second by Mr. Perucci. Roll call?
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Luca,
Yes.
Chairman Kennedy.
Yes. Okay, we can do these all together.
I think, oh, yep, yep.
Okay, we have escrow deficiencies. 01-19P, new private restaurant partners, $8,500. 32-18P, HMH Hospital Corps, Raritan Bay, $2,500. 05-19P, Woodhaven Section 2, Phase 5. Oh, that one's been paid, so we can just skip that one, right? Okay, forget that one. Village Supermarket, $300, and 39-17P, the Oaks Development School Site, $5,000. So we have to do a motion on that?
One vote is fine for a motion to provide the applicants with notice that they're deficient in their escrows.
Okay, so we don't need a motion.
I did one motion for all.
Oh, we need a motion for all. Okay, can I have a motion? Mr. Marucci, Mr. Schmidt. Roll call.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Womack,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Luca,
Yes.
Chairman Kennedy.
Yes. Okay, application 38-18P, RD Management Corps, preliminary and final major site plan. We're going out of order. This is going to be brief, and then we're business.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, board professionals, and public. My name is Jared Pape, and I represent RD Management Corp. This evening, we have no substantive presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an update since the last hearing on April 2nd, as well as a request to carry this meeting till the September or the next available meeting in front of this board. Before I begin, may I ask if the notices that we provided were found to be acceptable and whether this board has jurisdiction over this matter?
Yes, thank you. The board did request that you, because you hadn't been here in a while, that you renotice. So that was done. I don't know if anybody's here that came because of those notices. Okay, we at least have one person, so your notice was received. Good.
Thank you. As I mentioned, this matter was last heard before this board on April 2nd, 2019. At the conclusion of that meeting, Ken Pape stated that he would meet with your professionals promptly and work on revisions and supplements to the materials that we provided to you. Shortly thereafter, we met with your professionals. We then had a meeting with the DOT, your professionals, including Ms. Deanna Drum, and our team, including Mr. John Ray, who is here this evening. We are currently drafting revised plans based on that meeting, and we anticipate those plans to be ready in approximately 2 weeks. In a moment, I will ask Ms. Deanna Drum to provide the board with a brief overview of that meeting, and when she concludes, I would just ask for a minute to make a final statement to request the next meeting. So if you don't mind, Ms. Deanna Drum, to provide an overview of that meeting.
Certainly. Deanna Drum for the record. I had the privilege of meeting with DOT as well as the applicant's project team, their civil engineer and their traffic engineer with DOT. Our meeting was early July. Basically, at the end of the day, DOT was favorable of permitting the right-in, right-out access onto Route 18, and that was one of the concerns that we had, and there was a lot of discussion about that. There was some other discussions regarding the intersection improvements because the applicant is going to propose to put a southbound left turn lane at the traffic signal in lieu of widening the jug handle due to wetlands. That is, again, a little bit outside our jurisdiction. But again, it was a favorable meeting. The DOT is willing, at least on the behalf of the applicant, to review this more conceptually on their end prior to a full application being submitted. But again, it was a favorable meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Drum. Madam Chair, we would ask that you carry this application to the next available meeting. We're hoping it's in September, and that you do so without the requirement of renotice and republication.
Are we doing public?
So the question is, when do we have another meeting? I think we can, I know there's at least one person that came. We're going to now pick the date they're going to come back. They met with DOT. They need to now make more revisions. They need to revise the plans. Those need to be filed 10 days ahead of the next hearing. So if you want to review them, you'll be able to go in the planning board office and look at those. But they do need some more time, so we're going to pick another date now. October 1st.
October 1st.
Okay, so they're going to be coming back on October 1st. They're not going to renotice again. This is your notice. If you want to make sure they're really coming that night, you can call ahead and find out what's going on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and for anyone here from the public for this application, just make sure you understand that the full hearing will be on October 1st, and there will be no renoticing. So if you can just spread the word. Thank you. Okay, 23-19P, Vista at Old Bridge. Preliminary and final major site plan and minor subdivision.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Craig Genetti of the law firm Dave Pitney, on behalf of the applicant Vista at Old Bridge LP, which is a single-purpose entity and subsidiary of the Richmond Group Development Corporation.
Interrupt, but does he have a court reporter?
Pardon me? Oh, are you used? Oh,
Are you willing to use the court reporter the board has?
Sure,
You will agree to her standard fee, that whatever it is?
that is fine.
Yeah.
okay. 2-minute recess.
I'll start over.
Okay.
You ready?
All right, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Craig Genetti of the law firm Dave Pitney, on behalf of the applicant Vista at Old Bridge LP. The Vista at Old Bridge LP is a single-purpose entity and subsidiary of the Richmond Group Development Corporation, which is a national multifamily apartment developer
that also specializes in the development of affordable housing through the federal low-income housing tax credit program. This is an application for minor subdivision approval and preliminary and final major site plan approval for an affordable housing development of property located at the intersection of East Greystone Road and Marlborough Road, also designated as Block 2000, Lot 79.11. The applicant is a contract purchaser of a portion of the property, which is currently owned by the Old Bridge Housing Authority. The applicant is also designated conditional redeveloper of the property, as well as this project being part of the town's affordable housing plan. The property is located in the R120 residential zone, governed by the AH subdistrict regulations of the Old Bridge Crossroads redevelopment plan. The applicant is seeking first minor subdivision approval to subdivide the property, lot 79.11, into two lots. Lot 79.13, which will consist of about 14.5 acres, which will be the subject property for the development, and the remainder lot, 79.12, which will consist of about 11 acres, will remain with the Old Bridge Housing Authority. The applicant is seeking site plan approval to construct approximately 72 affordable housing rental apartments in three-story apartment buildings, each consisting of 24 units, along with a clubhouse that will also have a supers unit in it, a tot lot, 152 parking spaces, and associated landscaping and stormwater management improvements. I have with me tonight Joseph Hanrahan, the civil engineer of Hammer Engineering, who will testify as to the site plan, Nigel Marsh, the architect on the project, Nick Vetterisi of Dynamic Traffic with respect to traffic testimony as well, and we also have Christina Cafone, a licensed professional planner, to deal with any variances associated with the application. As we'll go through the testimony, there are a design waiver related to a sidewalk width that we'll be seeking, parking dimensions, seeking 9 by 18 where 10 by 20 is required, and also a monument sign setback. At this point, I'd like to call Joseph Hanrahan of Hammer Engineering to testify as to the site plan.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Just state and spell your name for the record, please.
Joseph Hanrahan, Hanrahan.
Want to give your qualifications?
Mr. Hanrahan, please provide your education, experience, and credentials, as well as licenses in the field of civil engineering.
Sure. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I've had my license since 1997. I have a civil engineering degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm licensed in 8 other states, and I've testified before dozens of boards throughout the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hanrahan, did you or someone in your direction prepare, well, first, I guess, did you or in your office prepare the site plan set that was submitted as part of this application?
Yes, we did.
And did you or someone in your direction prepare any exhibits in connection with tonight's meeting?
Yes, we have.
And if you can identify those exhibits?
We've prepared an aerial exhibit of the property and the surrounding area, a rendering of the site plan, and a subdivision exhibit.
Maybe starting with the existing conditions aerial plan, which you can mark as A1. Just you can orientate the board as to the property's location and surrounding area.
Sure. So referring to Exhibit A1, which is an aerial image of the property and the surrounding area, you have the site bolded in black. You have Marlborough Road running vertically, north is straight up. Marlborough Road running vertically on the right side of the property. And East Greystone Road running horizontally along the bottom of the property. So the property is located at the intersection of Marlborough Road and East Greystone Road. That's known as Lot 79.1 in Block 2000. The entire site contains 25.67 acres. It's vacant and wooded today. To the west, or to the east is Marlborough Road. To the south is East Greystone Road. To the west, in this southwest corner, is the MUA water tank property. And then to the north and west are undeveloped wooded tracts that surround the property. So what the applicant is proposing is to subdivide the property into 2 tracts, one to the north and one to the south. The northerly tract, the northerly lot, I'll call it, will contain just over 11 acres, and that will remain undeveloped and wooded as it is today. The southerly property, the southerly lot, is the subject of this application, and that is the lot that will be developed. That lot is 14.66 acres prior to the right-of-way dedication, which we'll get into later in the testimony. So moving on to exhibit, I assume A2, which will be the rendering of the site plan. This is a zoomed-in portion of the southerly lot. North is rotated now to the left. So this is the 14-acre property, 14.66 acres. You have Marlborough Road now running across the top of the page and East Greystone Road running on the right side vertically. The project consists of a 73-unit residential apartment community comprised of 3 three-story buildings and one story clubhouse, in addition to a stormwater management basin to the north. Also associated parking. The three-story apartment buildings two will be along Marlborough Road, fronting on Marlborough Road, and the third will be fronting on East Greystone Road. East Greystone Road, this portion of East Greystone Road is unimproved. It's a paper street as of today. The clubhouse will be located at the center of the site, and that will be surrounded by the parking for the 73 apartments. Each of the 3 buildings will have 24 apartments, and then there'll be 1 apartment unit within the clubhouse itself for the site superintendent.
Right there.
Excuse me?
Maybe using A1 if you can show where the nursing home is.
Oh, sure. The nursing home is to the south, across East Greystone Road. So you have the site here, East Greystone Road. Opposite that is the Roosevelt Care Nursing Center.
On the other side of Marlborough.
No, same side, but on the other side of East Greystone Road. Same side as our project, but to the south.
Maybe using exhibit A2, just highlight again where East Greystone Road is.
Sure.
Where the nursing home would be in relation.
So on exhibit A2, now East Greystone Road is at the right-hand side of the page, and the Roosevelt Care Center is to the right, again to the south. Marlborough Road running along the top of the page.
Okay.
So moving on to access, the project proposes access from Marlborough Road with a divided boulevard-type driveway, 2 20-foot lanes separated by a 6-foot landscape island. That'll provide access to the parking field. The parking field is designed in accordance with RSIS standards, 24-foot two-way access drives around the parking lot with 9x18 parking stalls. For this project, the RSIS requires 146 parking stalls. We are proposing 152, so 6 above what is required by RSIS.
And with respect to the parking stall size, 9x18, we're requesting a design waiver from the town ordinance.
Yes, the town ordinance, the general ordinance requires 10x20. This project, since it's a residential project, is governed by RSIS, Residential Site Improvement Standards. That standard is 9x18. It's an industry standard for residential projects. And again, another benefit is that it reduces impervious area and land disturbance. But RSIS governs here, and we comply with RSIS.
And you've developed or worked on other Richmond Group affordable housing apartment projects, and is it common for 9x18 to be the parking stall size?
It's the standard. It's very uncommon for them not to be 9x18. Moving on to landscaping, the project proposes a significant landscape package to enhance the property and the surrounding area. We're proposing 200 trees, over 1,000 shrubs, We have buffering along the 3 perimeter sides along East Greystone Road to the south, along the water tank property to the west, and again along the northerly property line of within our own 14.5 acre, 14.66 acre property. And what I failed to mention earlier is this is all wetlands, so the northerly corner, the northwest corner of the property is encumbered by wetlands, so that will remain as wooded, undeveloped. And then above that is the infiltration stormwater management basin along Marlborough Road. So the project proposes a significant landscape package. From a lighting perspective, it's designed in accordance with township standards. We're proposing 17.5-foot light fixtures, LED fixtures, ornamental acorn style, and there'll be no spillage off the property. All the lighting is contained within the property, so no impact off the property itself. From a trash and recycling standpoint, the project proposes 1 trash enclosure, 24-foot wide by 14 feet deep. This will be a block structure with brick facing to match the building with solid aluminum gates to screen the facility from the parking field, and that will provide the amenity for the community itself.
Will that be a private hauler?
Yes, it will. With regard to signage, the project does propose 1 freestanding monument sign at the entrance, at the north side of the boulevard entrance along Marlborough Road. This is a 15-square-foot sign. The ordinance allows 20 square feet, so we're within the ordinance requirement. It is set back 2 feet from the proposed right-of-way. This project requires an 18.6-foot right-of-way dedication, substantial right-of-way dedication. So we're proposing it 2 feet off that 18.6-foot right-of-way dedication. The ordinance requires 20 feet from the edge of pavement and 10 feet from the right-of-way. We're 2 feet, so we need a deviation from that 10-foot requirement. However, we are, as I said, 32 feet from the edge of pavement, 20 feet is required. We're well beyond the pavement requirement. It's just that the substantial right-of-way creates the deviation. If the pavement was ever widened, we could move that back to continue to be at least 20 feet from the edge of pavement. However, due to the undeveloped nature of this roadway, to push the sign further back would limit the visibility and access to the project.
One question again with respect to parking. Are parking spaces assigned, or is it first come, first serve?
There'll be no assignment, first come, first serve.
And you had an opportunity to review the board engineer's review letter dated July 30th, 2019, reissued August 1st, 2019.
I have.
And if you can just, rather than go through point by point, we can agree to address all the comments, but are there any specific comments you would like to address with respect to the application?
Generally, we agree with all the comments. I believe a couple may require some discussion. We agree to the bollards at the ADA stalls, the benches, and the trash receptacles. All the deviations we agree to, the bike racks.
And there were some questions as to the clubhouse and how it'll operate. Our architect will get into that testimony. I believe there's another site plan comment, number 20, about requesting the applicant to look into shifting Building A in a westerly direction, and if there was a grading issue with respect to doing that.
We can do that. We will take a look at that. The purpose of that comment is shifting Building A allocates, divides the parking a little bit better on the site so that people will park at the western parking a little bit more freely than they would if the way the building's laid out today. As long as grading and earthwork doesn't create a problem, we're amenable to that recommendation.
And we have no other comments from an engineering perspective with respect to her engineer review letter?
No, I believe we can agree to everything. There was a question, I believe, whether it will be filed by deed or plat. That will be by deed. That is our recommendation to file by deed.
And you had an opportunity to review the board planner's review letter dated August 1st, 2019?
I have, yes.
And same thing, we can agree with all the comments, but wanted to address first planning comment 1, or LK, I believe it is, with respect to the sidewalk width on page 7.
We can comply with that sidewalk width. We can increase that to 5 feet.
Well, I think the requirement shall be no less than 6 feet, but she was suggesting at a minimum, the proposed sidewalk should be 5 feet wide.
I think we mislabeled one sidewalk on that plan to be 6 feet, and it's approximately 4 feet. And I think the requirement's 5. We'll comply with the 5-foot requirement.
And then comment 1L, again, addresses the parking stall design waiver we're seeking, and as well as comment 2B with respect to the monument sign, which we already addressed.
That's correct.
With respect to the traffic memo, we'll have our traffic engineer address that. You received the Bureau of Fire Prevention review letter dated July 29th, 2019.
Yes, we have.
And we'll be able to comply with the comments contained therein.
That is correct. We met with Mr. Hart yesterday, and we can comply with his requirements.
And then, in addition, I know you've had discussions with the Township Conservation Officer with respect to shade trees, and they issued a letter dated August 2nd, 2019. We'll be able to comply with the comments in there.
Yes, we can.
And in there, I believe he recommended the granting of the submission waiver for the landscape plan as part of this application.
That's correct.
That's all. I have a direct presentation of the civil engineer. The architect will come up next and get more into the details of the buildings being proposed.
Okay, Lena, do you have anything you want to?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And Dan?
One question,
Oh.
sorry. The fence around the Todd lot. So would you add a fence around?
Yes,
The
we
play
agreed
area,
to,
okay.
to do that.
That's it.
Okay, and the engineer, do you have any?
Thank you, Chair. No, actually, I don't have any. I do have a couple of questions. I'm sorry. I did get a chance to speak with the applicant's engineer. We had a pretty lengthy phone conference after we issued our memo and went over most of our comments. We have a bunch of detailed kind of comments that we'll be able to work out. I do have one thing that's not in our review memo, just more of a question than anything else. There's a right-of-way dedication that we're proposing on the property that's going to be the apartment complex. The remaining parcel, the other parcel, is, I know you guys didn't propose a right-of-way dedication. Is that something that can be done at this point, or does your contract not allow you to do that?
Yeah, under our contract, we're not touching the remainder land with the housing authority. I assume if or when they come in with something, that will be addressed at that point.
Okay, at that point, we can work that out with them. All right, that's the only question I had this time.
Just to add, that portion of the parcel remains with the housing authority. So only 14.5 acres of the parcel is actually related to Vista, but the remaining still is under housing authority's ownership.
Mr. Hart, are you?
You mentioned I met with your staff yesterday in my office, but can you bring up a little bit more what went on in my office? My concern was the vehicle circulation plan had me on the wrong side of the road turning into the development. That's a major problem. I asked if we could cut back your 6-foot island separating the entrance and the exit So at least my truck will not have to go on the wrong side of the road to turn in, especially coming from the north.
Yeah, we can do that.
I
and
just
that-
don't want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with my other side on the table over here, that I'm asking you to cut back something that they might have to have there.
Sure. So what we have a fire truck turning template, and I apologize if I kind of glossed over that, that I could show. And what happens is the fire truck, as it enters the site, does swing out into the opposing lane, which is not uncommon for a fire vehicle. However, to keep it in the lane entering the site, what we'll do is we'll kick back the center island to allow him to stay in the lane. I'm not aware of any conflict that will create from an engineering standard, but it's a good point, and thank you.
Yeah. You throw out the 9 by 18 parking spaces like it's normal. Concern we have is, as tight as that lot is, you're giving me 24 feet from your 9 by 18 lines, not to the back of a car or a truck. That might stick past that 18-foot line 2 feet. Our aerial truck that I sent you this picture of hangs over 16 feet. As we try to turn through that scale that you gave us, we will be destroying vehicles parked if they don't too far forward. I agree, a lot of site plans, they go 9 by 18, but the circulation is so narrow that I don't know if we're going to fit around it.
I wasn't aware. I know that was a comment. I thought it was resolved with you. But this is a standard layout. It's 24-foot aisle. I mean, the fire code requires 20-foot lanes, so we have 24. 9 by 18 stalls, it is the standard. It's very unusual to have a residential community with anything but 9 by 18, other than maybe compact stalls, which are even smaller. That is generally, fact. We do, in my opinion, we have enough. We show the template that does work around the site. It's pretty standard. If you wanted another, I'm not sure what we could do for you. We kind of.
Well, the sketch that he left with me.
Yeah.
Shows my aerial truck going west, the furthest lane west. An aerial truck is going to be in the lane right behind the clubhouse, not the furthest west lane of traffic, if that building goes on fire? Yes. It wasn't showing that on the sketch. It was showing it going into the last row of parking stalls.
Yeah, our thought on that was that you, and you're the expert, but our thought on that is that you wouldn't want the fire truck right next to the building if it's on fire, and that you would fight it from the aisle above or from the aisle away. It's only a one-story building.
Right.
However, if that's your desire, we would have to increase those radii around that clubhouse, and it could impact parking. We could lose a handful of parking stalls to do that. So that's what the impact of that would be.
That was one of my concerns during my little meeting with your staff, is that an aerial truck, that building will be built with truss roofs. We're not going to go on it with ground ladders, so we're going to go off an aerial truck.
Okay.
Now, our aerial truck is pretty big. It's 110 foot long. But if I go on the other side of 36 feet, it
Can't
won't
get
reach
there.
your building.
Okay. We can look at that, and we'll satisfy you one way or the other.
Okay.
But I hear your comment, and we'll get that aerial truck through there.
And there's no other way to make the 20-foot entrance 24 feet, or shrink in your aisle? Yeah. Island?
The two 20-foot lanes that come in, that we could potentially make wider, if that's your concern.
Well, the concern is the aerial truck sets up in 20 feet.
Okay.
When the outriggers come out the side of the truck. If I got to fight building the first two buildings off of Marlborough Road, the truck will have to sit in that lane of traffic, at least one side or the other side, depending on the building. The truck will just fit in there. I think one of my comments was concerned about your landscape plan, whether going to be anything more than shrubs, because the trees will become a problem eventually.
And we'll comply.
And I
with
know,
that.
I know you think your plan called for only shrubs in that island. Is it possible to make it 4-foot wide instead of 6-foot wide? Just to give me a little more room.
I believe we can do that, yes.
It might
I think we
also
can do
help
that.
the turn
Yeah,
if it's a little narrow.
we can do that, so that'll give you another foot on each side. Yeah, we can do that.
The hydrants and stuff we'll address with the architect and...
No, we'll
the
take care of that.
placement- Well, the placement of the hydrants are challenging because I don't know where the fire department connection is going to be on each building. There has to be one within 75 to 100 feet of each fire department connection per building. What we have done in the past is try to lay them out where I can utilize one hydrant for maybe 2 buildings. The concern is you showed 2 hydrants. One right in front of whatever building left, that, right where your finger is. There's 2 parking stalls, one on each side of it. So if there's a car or a truck parked on each side, I won't see it and I won't be able to use it. And the other one is on the other corner.
Right.
So we can usually work around that, but I don't know where the FDCs are going to be coming out of your buildings. Will determine where the hydrants have to be laid out. And that rear lot, there's nothing back there at all. So
Yeah,
I
we're
would
gonna
like
put
to
one
have a
opposite-
third one somewhere
Opposite
in
the
the rear.
clubhouse, right. And that, we agreed to
Yeah.
satisfy you on that, so we will work with you, we'll show you the FDCs, we'll give you the hydrants where you need them. So
Yeah.
that's not an issue for us.
Okay.
I do have, sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
The only concern I have about the widening of the access, right now what the applicant's proposing is 2 20-foot wide lanes. It's a boulevard with a 6-foot wide planted island and 2 20-foot wide lanes, exit and entrance. The concern when you start widening them, and I totally understand what you're saying about the riggers and everything, is that then you have the temptation for people to start parking there, especially this site does meet the parking requirement per RSIS, but it's still not abundantly parked. It's not overly parked. So there may be instances where you're going to wind up with people hunting for parking spaces, and that winds up being an attractive place for people to start parking on the side, because at 22 feet, you can have a car park and then 15 feet's what's left over for very comfortably passing trucks and whatever. So that would be the only concern. I would like to work something out where maybe we can work something with the island being not as planted, where for the infrequent instances when you have to have a truck with riggers out there, they can set up in that island.
No, they can't.
Yeah, no? Or can you?
They
can you
can't
do
set up
something
anything
where
but blacktop.
it's 20
The-
feet, though? I
The
mean,
rest of my plan or memo showed fire striping, fire lane markings, and since I don't think you're doing Belgian block, you're doing curbing,
That's right.
it's going to be yellow, which then can be enforced. Plus, I'm sure it's going to have Title 39 for the police. So
I mean, we'll need to stripe it then and have some signage for no parking and stuff like
Oh,
that.
absolutely. We
'Cause
Yeah.
It's a
Yep.
pretty,
Yeah.
it's a big concern to have a bunch of cars parking along those entrance drives. I mean, 20 feet's not wide enough for riggers at all?
it's right at it.
Yeah.
So when there's snow, I won't see the curb.
Okay, that's a good point, too, so. Maybe we can work it out with striping and signage then at that
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other reports that you're going to respond to? That's it.
Nothing further from this witness. At this point, I'd like to call our architect. Was there any board questions?
I just want to see if there's any, does the board have any questions or comments?
I just wonder why we don't subdivide another half acre and not have any problems.
I thought it's wetlands.
Well, I think it's,
I don't think it's necessary. I think we have a very compliant, well-designed site here, and we can address Mr. Hart's comments.
And I've heard that about 30 times in about 30 different developments in here, and we have a parking problem in every one of them. I know the RSI says one thing, but the reality is people have more than 2 cars. So I mean, you have 14 other acres, take a half an acre, and then we don't have these problems.
I guess,
In fact, we could even get extra parking. How about that?
well, we already have extra parking first. Second, it was a negotiation with the housing authority as to how much land we needed. obviously, at some point, they're going to have some sort of future vision for the property. And also, too, there's some constraints with respect to that land there already. I don't think it's as simple as just adding more land addresses the fire marshal's questions.
Yeah, I think you'll hear from Mr. Verderisi, the traffic engineer, that the project is well parked. It's well studied and well parked, and we've designed thousands of units and studied those after they've been built, and there's plenty of spaces at these developments that we've designed.
We have an engineer concerned that they may be parking along the boulevard. We have a fire official concerned that he doesn't have the proper amount of space for his fire trucks. I think the simple solution is just grab a half acre. It's there, do it now. We ain't gonna get it later.
Well, I think the question was more the concern of the people parking in the access aisle because it was now wider, as opposed to it necessarily being underparked.
I'm just trying to use a little common sense. I know that's not always common. But, you know, I do that, I'm sorry.
All right, does anyone, yes, Mr. Luca.
So, one of the things I was noticing is that the site is preferential for disabled veterans. And I know that I'm making the assumption that disabled is physical disabilities. Something that's sticking out right now is there are 6 handicap spots in the lot designated. So I'm wondering about the preponderance of handicap parking, specifically on a site designed for disabled veterans. But I'm also wondering too about the sidewalks, if the width of the sidewalks can accommodate wheelchairs, if there's ramps coming up from the parking lot area to the sidewalks. And just out of curiosity too, and I don't know if this necessarily speaks to the concern about parking on the boulevard, but something that kind of strikes me about the layout is I understand wanting to have frontage on Marlborough Road, but you have this kind of back corner of the lot there that's not really close to anything. And, you know, in worst case scenarios, you've got, according to the scale on your map, 140 to 200 feet from those back spots to your front door. So that's something that I had just noticed, and I was wondering if somebody could address for me.
Sure. As far as the ADA, the project, the American with Disabilities Act, the project is designed with the appropriate handicap stalls. There are handicap ramps at each handicap stall, and the sidewalks can accommodate handicap residents. As far as the distance to the parking, I'll let the Mr. Verderisi, the traffic engineer, testify to that. But this is very standard. Anything within 200 feet is very standard and appropriate for this type of development.
Well, this is, I understand how it could be for a standard type of development, but this is a development that is specifically looking to house people that may have physical disabilities. So I'm just sort of wondering about 6 handicap spots.
We'll have a representative from the Richmond Group that can get more into detail as to the disability requirement, how many units are reserved for disabilities, as well as the affordable nature of it. I can have him come testify now, if you like, or...
Okay, well, we're going to open it to the public before we
If that could
get
be
to
addressed
next
just at some
witness.
point, I can wait.
Okay, well, I think that is a valid point, because we are, you know, the first preferred use is for veterans that have disabilities, so it may have more than just the normal handicap requirements for the type of facility, depending on, you know, the occupants. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to open to the public. Is there anyone from the public that wants to comment or ask any questions of this witness? Okay, seeing no hands, I'll close the public portion for this witness. Okay, you're going to have your architect?
Yes, my architect will come up next and testify as to the buildings and address some of the ADA questions that were raised.
I thought the adjoining property was wetlands. It's not all wetlands.
Not all of it, but the part that they,
Nigel Marsh, N-I-G-E-L.
the immediate adjacent extra properties. The part that touches near them is wetland. swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Nigel Paul Marsh, spelled M-A-R-S-H.
Thank you.
Mr. Marsh, if you can please provide to the board your education, experience, and qualifications in the field of architecture.
I was educated in the United Kingdom. I've been a resident in America since 1987, practicing architecture. I've been with a firm of originally Colpin & Woods, now Marsh & Woods. I'm now a full partner with the firm. I've been with them since 1993. I am a registered architect for the Architects Registration Board. I'm a charter member of the Royal Institute of British Architects, and I'm an international associate of the American Institute of Architects.
And you've been accepted as an expert in the field of architecture before boards in the state of New Jersey before?
I have, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you have worked on apartment building projects for the Richmond Group?
I have, numerous.
So maybe starting, did you or someone in your direction prepare the architectural plans and floor plans that were submitted as part of this application?
That is correct.
And did you or someone in your direction prepare any exhibits for tonight's meeting?
Yes, my office did under my direction.
And we maybe begin using with the first of your exhibits, identifying it as...
The first exhibit I'm going to present is it's PZ 1.1, which is a floor plan for the building type A.
We can mark that as Exhibit A3.
And the second exhibit, which will be A4, are the elevations for that same building, which is PZ 1.2.
And these are representative of the plans that were submitted as part of the application?
That is correct. Wait. So this is a typical building of the three. Each building has 24 apartments, and each building has 2 points of entrance. The entrance would be towards the parking, not towards the rear of the property. Each entrance has in total of 12 apartments over 3 floors that are accessed with a single staircase. The apartments on the ground floor will be predominantly accessible to meet the standards of ADA. So there is a mix of apartments provided on each floor. This building, which is the largest of the 3, is composed of 6 2-bedroomed apartments on the first floor and 2 3-bedroomed apartments on the first floor. So we have in total 18 2-bedrooms and 6 3-bedrooms in this building. In another building, building type B, we have all 2-bedroom units. So that would be 24 2-bedroom units. In the third building type, we have a mix of 3s and 1-bedroom units. The 1-bedroom units would be in the center of the plan with the 3-bedroom units on either side. Predominantly, the 1-bedroom units on the first floor would be for veterans with disabilities. So that gives a count of approximately 4 that would be more or less dedicated to veteran use. If we then take a look at the typical elevations, and each building will be similar in appearance, you can see that they are 3 stories with a pitched roof. The entrances are flanked by towers with gable ends. These project forward. As you can see in the plan, they project about 6 feet. So they're fairly dominant, and they give very visual clues to how to get into the buildings. The buildings themselves are clad in a mixture of materials. There is a plinth or a water table that runs around the building, which is a cultured stone material. In the towers themselves, that cultured stone extends up the building to the head of the windows on the first floor. There are then siding material, which is fiber cement. Richmond Group do not use vinyl siding. They always use fiber cement. We have that two-toned. We have a darker tone at the first and second floors, which will be a timber bark product. That's the name of the product itself. And then the third floor and the towers themselves flanking the entrances will be in a lighter shade, which will be a cobblestone. The windows themselves and any vertical or horizontal trim will be in fiber cement, or the trim will be fiber cement, will be Arctic white. So that will give a nice bright contrast between the dark and the lighter cobblestone siding. The windows themselves will be white, but they will be vinyl. There will be high efficiency windows. The roofing shingles are felt roofing, architectural grade, 30, 35-year plus.
With respect to the floor plan and number of units, how many of them will be barrier-free units?
All of the apartments on the first floor would be barrier-free. So they will be designed as such. They can be adapted. Some will permanently be adapted to give access to any tenant that wishes to take them. Other ones will be adaptable. So they will be built out so that we can quickly install any grab bars or adjust the plumbing fixture heights, etc., without too much inconvenience.
And how many units are there of that total?
There will be 24. Every unit at the first floor would be either adapted or adaptable.
How about the second and third floor? Any accessibility, any elevators?
There are no elevators in the building. They are all walk-up. So although the footprint of those plans are identical, so effectively they could be adjusted. And in the state of New Jersey, we are required to make them accessible, even though we don't have an elevator in this building. So the footprints would be accommodable, but adaptable.
And then next with the clubhouse.
Yes. This exhibit, which will be A5, describes in plan and elevation the clubhouse structure itself. This is the single-story building. Although the height of the clubhouse itself is probably a story and a half. That is to give more headroom internally so we can get ceiling heights of 13 feet where we require them. The plan of the building itself, this would be on the lower portion of the plan here, it would be where the entrance would be, which will be facing towards Marlborough Road through the other buildings that are to the below this. And then to the left-hand side of the plan, you'll see in this green tone, that is the single-bedroomed supers apartment. So that they are conjoined in plan. The top lot would be to the right of the clubhouse plan, away from where the supers apartment is. Accommodated within the clubhouse itself, there are a number of functions. Primarily, the clubhouse is designed as an assembly point for people that want to take advantage of some of the amenities that the property provides, the management company provides. There is a 650 square foot fitness room, which will be fully furnished with fitness equipment. There is a club room, which is about 1,000 square feet, which has about 900 square feet of open space, which would accommodate a maximum of about 60 people. There is a small pantry area within the club room, no cooking facilities, just refrigeration and a water source. So you could have minor functions within that space. Off the main entrance to the clubhouse, there is a package room. Each of the apartment buildings has mail delivery access points in the primary lobbies. But packages are becoming more and more common in apartment buildings, and in anybody now has packages arriving at their house. So we will have a package room itself, and this will have a system called, one proprietary product is called Package Concierge, and this is designed specifically to function and operate on a use basis that the delivery person, be it FedEx, be it UPS, delivers, takes access of one of the lockers, and that locker is then defined specifically for a particular tenant. The tenant is alerted to the package having arrived. They can then come to the clubhouse, pick up their package, and then that locker becomes available to any other tenant going forward. So this is a good-sized room. It's about 200 square feet. It will accommodate any size packages and packages for the whole apartment complex. The entry space also has a fireplace internally, and we'll have like a lounge area, seating tables, just as a general like meeting area. Off the entrance is a management office, which will be used for management purposes, leasing purposes. That is 200 square feet. Also accommodated within this building are bathroom facilities, both for women and for men, and the size of those is based upon the maximum occupancy of the building when it's being used for fitness and for assembly purposes in the club room. Also, on the building, accessed from the exterior and closest to the super's apartment, is a small workshop area. That's about 200 square feet, and that will be finished out to provide tool use and storage facilities for the superintendent for his management purposes and the functioning of the complex. Also accessed from the exterior and not from the interior of the clubhouse is a laundry room of about 300 square feet. This will accommodate facilities for both washing and drying and folding for all the tenants. There are no washing hookups within the apartments themselves. So all of the washing and cleaning and drying will have to take place in the laundry facility. This is sized to meet the standards that are given by the Laundry Association of America.
I believe there's a question about security, access, and cameras with respect to the clubhouse.
Yeah, the access to the clubhouse will be by card key access. So every tenant will have card key access to their apartment, apartment building, and to their apartment individually. And that card key will also give them access to the club room and clubhouse itself. In the event that you have other guests coming to use the clubhouse with you, should you have a party of other function, then they would have to be brought in by you. There will be key access that you can hear them or see them, and that you can let them through the door at that point in time. Cameras will be provided throughout the facility, both internally and externally, to give some sense of security. Those will be in the apartment buildings, at each floor, in the lobby area, and externally to the door, main access door. And in the clubhouse itself, they will be located internally in the fitness room, in the club room, in the package room, in the entry, and externally to guard access to the front door. The materials we're using on the exterior replicate the use and choice of colors that we have on the other three buildings. So that ties in and gives some sort of continuity to finish and appearance of the buildings.
I have a quick question. Did I understand you correctly that the laundry facilities
Yeah.
are in
Just to
the
that building.
clubhouse, and none
That
of
is-
the units have laundry facilities?
That is correct.
Is there an ADA requirement for laundry facilities for disabled?
Not within the buildings, not within the apartments themselves, no.
They're going to have to somehow
Get
get to the building
correct.
to do their laundry, get to the clubhouse
Correct.
to do their laundry.
There will be, obviously there will be an accessible route between all of the buildings and the clubhouse. So that accessible route will enable anybody with a disability to be able to get to the laundry facilities and use
Convenient
them.
for somebody with a disability?
It's as convenient as it can be for the project. The location of the 4 dedicated veteran units will be closest to the clubhouse. Building A is probably the furthest away. That is the one with the 2s and the 3s. But Building B is the one with the 1-bedroom units, which is
You did
most
state there were
direct.
24 units.
There are
Each
24,
disabled
yes.
For all 3 buildings?
Correct.
8 on each first floor?
Correct.
Okay.
It's actually 12, yes, 8 per floor, 8 per first floor.
How many machines would be in that, or how many?
There will be a minimum of 6 washers. We'll probably get 7. And there will be a minimum of 12, probably 14 dryers,
Commercial style? Or?
commercial size.
I have to ask. why is this a better idea than providing in-unit laundry? Like, what about the current setup of the plan? I'm honestly kind of astounded to hear that 24 units that are accessible, reasonable to walk, but in the wintertime, and like, you're talking about something that we are hoping to create for disabled people, that this seems like an unnecessary hindrance.
And I have to say, I'm astounded too.
Yeah, I thought each building.
Well, our next witness, who's a representative, can testify more as to the affordable project, the program, the HFA program with respect to disabled, as well as the veterans' preference. They're not necessarily all, the veteran preference is not necessarily all disabled per se, but he could better testify as to the nature of the program and the number of units that are reserved for disabled, as well as the veterans' preference part of the program as well.
The architect's testimony was that the entire first floors on all 3 buildings are ADA.
Compliant, doesn't necessarily
Right.
mean
Can be
someone disabled is
converted.
living there.
Yeah, they're just compliant. They're not built out that way. There will be a proportion that are built out that way based on the management company's recommendations. But obviously, those units would go to tenants that have disabilities.
Yeah, but
And
even
at that
one
point,
in
they
a
would be,
wheelchair that has to trudge through snow and ice or whatever to get to the clubhouse to do his laundry is, in my opinion, unacceptable.
yes, that's your opinion, yes.
I have a disabled family member in a wheelchair.
I hear you.
And I'm sure he wouldn't.
I hear you.
It's unacceptable.
Yes, with the affordable apartments, we're typically not required, or we're not asked to provide washer-dryer hookups within the apartments themselves. That is just a Richmond preference. We do other buildings that have hookups. But in these apartments, we tend not to, and there tends to be more of a communal laundry facility provided. And in this instance, it's being provided within the clubhouse, which is in plan is centrally located between all 3 buildings, being closest to Building B, which is the one with the 4 apartments that may be for disabled veterans.
Anybody else have any?
Yeah, but did I hear you correctly when you said that there's 4 dedicated veteran units?
There's a possibility of 4 disabled veteran units. Yes, veterans that are not disabled would be given preference, but again, that's something that...
Yeah, the Richmond Group representative can testify. I think there's getting confused between the veterans' preference for the affordable units and the disabled veterans portion as well. This is not all the units are for disabled veterans. That's not how it's working. There's a preference on the affordable units, the family units for veterans, but then there's a disabled requirement that has a veteran's preference also.
Okay, so we're limiting it to 4 disabled veterans.
Well, we're going to hear how it works.
You'll hear in a
Why don't we
moment.
hear from the next witness?
Very good.
Yes.
You had mentioned that all the doors are key swiped. If, in the event of a power outage, how would the residents access the buildings?
They have battery backup on those power locks.
Okay, how long would that last?
That typically the batteries will last however long a battery will last. It's not like a 90-minute battery that you might find in an emergency light fixture.
Okay.
So we should be fine with that.
Yes.
I don't know if this is also more appropriately directed to someone who's going to explain the allotments, but I'm curious, the 4 units for disabled veterans are all 1-bedroom. I'd like to know why there aren't any 2-bedroom. Okay,
The next witness will address that.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else? That's it? Okay, we'll open to the public. Does anybody from the public have any questions regarding the architect? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll close it. You want to call your other witness?
Sure. At this point, I'd like to call Richard Truslow from the Richmond Group.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State and spell your name for the record, please, into the microphone.
My name is Richard Truslow. That's Truslowe.
Thank you.
Mr. Truslow, if you could just identify your position and role with the Richmond Group?
I'm vice president and run the development in New York and New Jersey for the Richmond Group. I oversee the general development from initial site acquisition to final construction completion and occupancy.
And you heard some questions about the veterans' preference as well as the disabled nature, and this being a HMFA low-income housing tax credit program. Can you just kind of describe the program, how the units are allotted, and how that works?
Sure. This is a straight, for lack of a better description, a straight family affordable housing project that has some preferences for certain individuals, and it was spoken about. There is a soft preference for veterans and disabled veterans. We have a normal cohort, if you will, of people, and I think it's best to just quickly run through kind of the unit mixes. We have 13 ones, 42 twos, and 18 threes, and they'll be rented to families that earn income ranges, and I think it's important just for me to get these out, between, for the ones, 25 and 40,000, for the twos between 40 and 55 or 60, and for the threes, the ranges move around based on family sizes, between 50 and 60,000. There also will be some very low rents, a few, not a lot, but a few that are under that, and they'll be for, it's a state requirement that we house some very low-income folks in the mix. But overall, it's a 72-unit project that has standard housing for families that just earn less than the average median income in the county. The question I think that's come up with the disabled and the disabled veterans has to do with what we have in our application in terms of housing some folks with disabilities, and we have, which we do. So in our tax credit application, we have an obligation that we will house a group of people. I think we have 5 units that'll be targeted for people with disabilities, and we have what's called a soft preference. It's not an actual preference for veterans.
Where do you use that? Can you describe what a soft preference is?
A soft preference is when we rent the project out, 4 or 5 months before CO, there'll be an announcement that'll happen. Actually, there'll be several announcements. One will come in the newspaper. Another will be probably in the community room right in the town, so the town is right on board with when the rental project starts. And then there'll be notice put out that we're taking applications. So folks that want to move in there will get a pre-application, and it'll give the income requirements, the unit mixes, and they'll be sent in and screened, and then we'll start a list from that on who will live there. Inside that, so if there's 72 units, most of the units are going to be people from the general public without any particular problem or disability or need or necessarily a veteran. However, we want to target some veterans, and in this case, we had thought that it would be better for us to target disabled veterans, because we have units in this property, as the architect stated, on the first floor. We have 24 units. They're not completely barrier-free units. Some will be barrier-free, and we would be able to take a disabled veteran very easily in a brand-new unit that would accommodate someone in a wheelchair that needed to be able to move in and out. We'd have parking that would be satisfactory, and we'd have a barrier-free unit on the first floor. My guess and our estimate is that we wouldn't have more than 20 or 30%. In most of our projects, we don't have more than 10% people that are disabled living in the units. So if we have 24 units on the first floor, if we had 8, that would be 30%. And that's probably the most that we'd have ever at the project disabled, based on our experience and what happens, in reality at our place. So the idea would be we wouldn't have, this isn't a project that's designed for people with disabilities. It's a project designed to accommodate some people with disabilities, and in our case, we are targeting, we're going to try to target veterans, and I think we can find some that'll fit the bill based on being able to know our projects coming online and work with the agencies that work with vets that are looking for housing. So that's how the soft preference thing came in. It's not a hard and fast obligation for the project.
What benefit does targeting the disabled veterans or disabled have to the program or to the project?
The benefit has none per se for the project. It doesn't give us any extra money. It doesn't do anything in particular for me. I happen to have an interest in veterans, which I won't bore you with. Maybe we all have, things about veterans. And I thought, and we have, because in all our projects, we have done, I personally done half a dozen projects in New Jersey, and you can see many of them are around here. Almost all of them have a special needs cohort, whether it's homeless or disabled or developmentally disabled, or each one of them has some sort of group, and we usually work with a service provider. In this case, we'll have a service provider to help folks that need it linked to this project, and we'll have a group of people that live there that are disabled. And in this case, I had wanted to target disabled vets and had a conversation with our service provider from the very beginning about doing this. Now, this is a first for me with disabled vets. I'll tell you that. But we're not, this project is not designed for people with disabilities. It's not 24, even though the 24 units can be adapted, the likelihood is that we're going to probably have 5, 6, 10% at most in here in the property that are disabled. That's our experience. Now, there was some question about the parking as well as, and I spoke briefly with Joe, the engineer, while we were, caucusing in between, and we can add, in the event that we do need extra spaces for disabled, we can add 2 right off the bat without losing any in the total.
We can go from 6 to 8.
So we can go in 6 to 8, and then if my math is right, if there are 24 units on the first floor, then that would cover 30% of them being people with disabilities, provided they drove, and they weren't in family. We may well get a disabled person in a 2-bedroom. They're not all for ones, and I want to make that clear. There may be someone that comes out of a situation where they're single and they need a 1. But there may also be somebody that's in a family that's eligible to live there that's disabled that's in a 2 or a 3. So that's possible as long as it's on the first floor.
And you don't think the laundry room situation will discourage?
No, I don't. I think that the laundry room situation is, as Nigel said and as Joe said, is that there's barrier-free travel throughout the community, and I think I have to think about it a little bit more, but I think we can probably get the folks that need it the most close to the community room, or at least closer if we can. It may be better. I'm not going to argue the case that if it was in a unit, it would be a little bit better.
There's no may about it. There's no may about it.
At any rate, I won't argue with you.
I would just like to add, because I was briefly on the Housing Authority, I think, when this whole concept was developed years ago, that there was indicated at that time that there was, that they really did want to make some provision for veterans, because at that time there seemed to be a shortage for housing for veterans, and I don't remember the disabled part, but definitely for veterans. So that always was part of the concept, I think, going back before the land was acquired and all the other things, but, so.
Oh, I agree.
And I think, I guess, to clarify with the testimony, it's not necessarily restricted to veterans, so they go to a program and they're provided veterans to live here. It's more of, with any affordable housing project, and correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, that has to be marketed to the general public, but you're allowed to target veterans, to give a preference for those units. And that's how the program would work.
That's correct. I think what I wanted to make clear is that we have an opportunity here, and I've lived in Monmouth County now for a long time, and I happen to live coincidentally in Tinton Falls, and watched the fort get redeveloped and see virtually no veterans housing in 8 years on the fort property. That maybe now finally there's one small project, and there's something in the south end of Tinton Falls, but it's not on the fort property. I think there's a shortage. I don't even, there's whole cohorts of veterans that need housing. There's no question about it. And I think this is the kind of place we can make work for them.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
the company is, a fantastic company, and I don't want to scare you. But I've sat through, I think this is the third public hearing in reference to this. Matter of fact, I even asked a question, is this going to be a veteran's preference? And I was assured by the administration that it's 100% veterans preference. Now, maybe it's going to be veterans. Maybe, a couple of disabled vets. So, is this are they telling us that to push this through, that it was for? I was also told that we would use our existing housing list. And now you're telling me there's going to be a new list. Who's telling the truth here? You or the administration? Because I specifically wanted to make sure that this was veteran preference. I asked a question at the council meeting as a councilman, and I was assured by the administration that it was going to be 100% veterans preference. So is it a little white lie here or a little white lie there? Who's lying?
I take exception to that. There's no white lies. Maybe there was a misunderstanding as to what a veteran's preference means. There's a difference between a preference and marketing towards veterans, but they can't guarantee that they're going to get 100 applications as part of their marketing plan of all veterans.
And that was stated. But if 72 veterans come in, now according to the testimony that was just given, they're not getting it.
Well,
there's no guarantee that they're getting it.
If 72 veterans came in the correct order that, for the way the application process works, they would get in.
Yeah.
I think what you have to do in relation to understanding what we can and can't do is that we can't take, for example, when you said use your list from Old Bridge, we can't take an Old Bridge list and set the housing aside from them. That's not allowed.
Well, I guess before you go further, though, and I'm not sure when you say the Old Bridge list, if you mean they affirmatively marketed and certified list is not the same as a list of Old Bridge residents that are looking
Not
for.
Old Bridge residents, it's an Old Bridge list that people sign up for available, affordable housing.
Well,
and we were assured that.
Well, let me finish.
That's
Well,
what we get.
let me clarify what I'm saying. When the project is ready to rent, the folks that live in Old Bridge will know right away that the application process is open, and they go on and they sign up. And I have not been in a town where people that got on, signed up, and lived in Old Bridge did not get in our communities. I can't limit that. I can't set aside units for folks in Old Bridge. That I could never do, whether I'm in Old Bridge or any other town in New Jersey. I don't know that, though.
We have a list of, I think, several thousand already, of people waiting for affordable housing.
If that list can be used, then we will use that list. But again, it's the regulatory requirements as to how your income qualified and on the list. If that list is qualified and we're allowed to use it without violating any HMFA regulation or co-regulation, then we can use it. I don't know, I haven't seen this list, I don't know what list you're talking about,
don't
so I
know
can't
either.
say we can use that
This
list.
for HUD housing? Is that the
Bridge Housing Authority list.
Well, we've
Bridge
been
Housing
in
Authority.
contact with them. We've offered to work and expect to work directly with them. They've been working with us, obviously, on the project. The attorney that runs it, I've had meetings with him and the Old Bridge Housing Authority to do the land transaction. I'd be glad to take anyone that they have on their list. A matter of fact, we have asked them to provide us their list. Now, that's not what I thought you were talking about. So we have that.
Do those people, do they get a preference?
Again, we haven't
They
seen
have
this
to meet
list.
the
I don't
income
know
requirements.
You just said he got it.
if that list,
They have to get on.
Qualified.
They have to get on. They have to apply, get on, and go through the screening process. They can't automatically be checked off because they're on the list and get a preference.
Chairwoman, if I may. Mr. Mervyn, just to clarify this a little better, because I was at the presentations made to the planning board as well as the council. What happens is CGPH is our consultant. They go through the screening, and they're the ones who maintain the list. I remember that at the meeting you had asked the same question about disabled veterans, and Megan, one of the representatives, had mentioned that when the project is ready and they advertise, there will be a preference for disabled veterans, which means that disabled veterans can apply, but after a point, if there aren't enough disabled veterans that apply for and qualify for the housing project, then it opens up to other families. But more than often, and this I said it at the council meeting too, even with the rehabilitation units, what CGPH has seen in the past is many applications come in. But if we receive maybe 30 applications in a year, not even 8 or 10 of them really qualify. So, yes, there will be a preference to disabled veterans, but more than likely that there won't be so many applications to fill in 72 units. And in that case, it opens up to other families. So, and that was precisely the reason why when we wrote the redevelopment plan under permitted uses, we had a requirement that the project be for families and or disabled veterans. So definitely there will be a preference, but there is a possibility that there won't be so many veterans, and then it opens up to other families.
If 72 qualified veterans apply, will they get a unit?
I would have to say yes.
That's what I was told.
72 qualified veterans or
With a
families with veterans qualify and land in the right order. You could have 72 units in veterans, provided, that they'd be able to go into non-barrier-free units upstairs. So I don't
know the latest anymore.
okay.
This is not the plan. I mean, that question should have been answered before. It's not going to derail this, please.
Okay. Does anybody else have any? Yes.
Could you please address the designation of solely one-bedroom units for disabled veterans? I don't know if we're going back and circling over the same thing. I'm getting confused because I had heard previous
Right.
testimony for one-bedroom units on the first floor, disabled veterans, but now not so much? I'm just curious.
Well, that was not correct.
Okay.
Okay, so the disabled vet could have a 3-bedroom apartment,
Exactly.
depending on the size of the family and the income.
Exactly.
Could you?
Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
I have one more.
Well, they can be disabled and still be able to, you know,
Kinds of
many
disabilities.
kinds of disabilities.
I was
Yeah.
wondering if you could just talk about the service provider that you typically work with for placement. Is it like somebody through the VA? Is it a private organization? I'm curious about how that works. Are there typical service providers that Richmond has worked with in other developments? Do you have a planned service provider, or is the intention to find somebody to help coordinate with the groups in need that were discussing?
No, we have a planned service provider.
May I
And
ask who?
that we plan to work with Catholic Charities.
Okay.
And have a negotiated arrangement to work with them.
Okay.
For the whole project.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no other hands, is there anyone from the public that has any questions regarding this testimony? Okay, seeing no hands, yes.
He needs the hand one.
Give your
Thank
name
you,
and
Madam
address, please.
President. My name is Joseph Mara. I'm the business administrator for the Old Bridge Township Board of Ed. I'm just wondering, this is the first time I've ever sat through a presentation like this. What type of consideration is given to the impact on the school district? This particular development is in the western section of town. There's only one elementary school there that has capacity of approximately 300 students, and it's at capacity at this point. And I'm just wondering what consideration has been given to you said there were 41 2-bedroom units and 18 3-bedroom units?
42 and 18.
Okay, so there could be approximately 20 or 30 children that will be going to a school that's already at capacity. Thank you.
I think that's more of a public
Okay, thank
comment as opposed to a question of this witness.
Okay, I'll close the public portion. What? We've lost 1,000 kids, and I think we have room for more
He was
kids.
asking if there was any consideration here. There was a question there.
I don't think it's set for our witness to answer that question. Our planner can address that question when it comes up.
Okay, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, I have Nick Vitorisi, traffic engineer. Of this witness?
Yeah. I'm a veteran, so I've been hearing all this talk about the housing for the veterans.
Sorry, give your name and your address, please.
Oh, sure. Kevin Antoine, I live here in Old Bridge.
You have to give your
You have to-
address, please.
What's that?
Your address?
Oh, 40 Cannon Road.
Okay.
In Old Bridge. I'm a veteran, an Air Force veteran, and so I'm hearing all this talk about the housing for the veterans. I sat on a few meetings when this proposal was coming up, and like the board member there on my far left, I thought this was something that was 100% marketed and would be provided to veterans. But now what I'm hearing is that if by chance some veterans apply and they get in the right order, they have a 50-50 shot of living in the unit. And the other thing that kind of concerns me is the access, I guess, to the pool house where the washing machines and stuff are. I mean, they're all kind of disabilities, not just in a wheelchair. And the other thing, I don't know who was up here talking earlier, but they kept saying handicap. People don't use that anymore when they describe people with disabilities. They say the disabled. But my concern is that you could have somebody who's, vision is challenged. You could have somebody that may have prosthetics that went into wintertime, they may not work as well. And to rely on, if I could use the chair as a prop, to rely on taking your wheelchair to go wash your clothes in the wintertime, and you have prosthetics, what good would that do a veteran living in that unit? So I just think that, as the planning board, you need to give some more thought and consideration on the design aspect of this, because once it's approved, that's it. So then who's going to be there for the veteran to help them with these challenges and all that sort of stuff? Because the veterans are probably not even thinking that if I go to wash my clothes, there's no hookups in the unit, and the area that I need to go to is so far away. Is that going to be,
Problematic.
problematic for them? So just.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion. And did you have any other witnesses?
Engineer, traffic.
Traffic engineer.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State and spell your name for the record, please.
Nicholas Verderisi, Verderese. Mr. Verderisi, can you please provide to the board your qualifications, experience, and licenses in the field of traffic engineering?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University, 1990. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I'm a principal founder of Dynamic Traffic, located at 1904 Main Street, Lake Como, New Jersey. I regularly appear before boards throughout the state of New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
And did you or your office prepare the traffic impact study that was submitted as part of this application?
Yes.
And maybe just briefly discuss your findings with respect to the study.
Yes, so first thing we did was I'm gonna change the boards. Go back to, I think, what's A2, which was the rendering of the site plan, just to orient everyone
We're
again.
looking at it too now.
Marlborough Road is on the top of the page, north is on the left. So we went out and looked at existing conditions in the area. So we looked at Marlborough Road, we looked at East Greystone Road. We took some traffic counts during typical commuter peak hours just this May of 2019. We identified what the peak time periods were. In the morning, that would be 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. In the evening, it was 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. So after we identify existing conditions, we then move forward with what the future conditions are. So how much traffic is a 72-unit apartment building going to generate? And utilizing the Institute of Transportation Engineers data, which is published data throughout the United States, accepted by all jurisdictions throughout the state of New Jersey. We've identified for round numbers about 40 peak hour trips. So that's in and out trips during the peak hour. Excuse me. So you're looking at an additional 40 trips on the roadway. Then we identified which directions they'll likely come from. We split that up pretty evenly between north and south on Marlborough Road, then did some analysis pre and post at the driveway in the post condition, and some pre and post at the intersection of Marlborough Road and East Greystone Road, which is to the south of the subject site. The volumes are generally moderate on these two roadways. Operates at good levels of service. There's a whole scale of A to F. We operate at about a B level of service, which is excellent for a community similar to this here in Old Bridge, a suburban community. So we're comfortable with the operation and the impacts. Again, it's negligible impacts. You're looking at about 20 vehicles, either north and south, in a 1 hour period. So you're looking at one vehicle every about 3 minutes. That will increase to this area of the town. Also, our analysis of the driveway, we looked at that operated at excellent levels of service A. and also looked at the sight lines and some other items to ensure safe access for the project. If you're familiar with Marlborough Road, there's a vertical curve in the roadway as you're coming over. We've placed our driveway right at the top there, so you have a good sight line looking in both directions, so you can see vehicles approaching from either the north or the south, and people can adequately see the location of this driveway when coming to the site. As our engineer mentioned, we wanted to move our sign a little bit closer versus the ordinance. It would be a definite benefit to the safety, particularly for visitors that would come here to be able to identify this site in that location. So we're confident that the driveway located in this spot will be safe and operated efficiently as well. As far as on-site circulation, you heard some comments as to some slight modifications we'll make to the entrance island, some comments from your fire department that I think we can address. And if we need to, work with the board's engineer on, modifying, maybe we modify the inbound lane to 22 feet and we modify the outbound lane to 18 because based on the residential site improvement standards, those are both above what's required for the divided roadway. So I think we can work on that because there would likely not be the same need, since they'll be entering on the right side of the road, to need to set up to fight a fire from the outbound lane. So I think we can work on that, whether we reduce the island or slide the island a little bit. As far as internal circulation, I heard the comments from the fire department, and I totally understand that sometimes you get a pickup truck that is a little bit longer than the space, but then for every one of those you get 10 cars that are only 16 feet long, so they're 2 feet shorter than the space. So it more than accommodates for that. That's why the requirements of 9 by 18 and 24 have been set throughout the state of New Jersey to cover all of the conditions that would happen. Needless to say, we can work on modifying some of the radii without really needing to change the number of parking spaces on the site. So we're confident that we can accommodate that fire truck throughout the site and throughout this aisle that's just on the west side of the clubhouse. As far as the number of parking spaces, you heard we're proposing 152 parking spaces. The requirement from the residential site improvement standards is 146, so we're already 6 over that requirement. There was some testimony from Mr. Truslow as to potentially adding 2 spaces that would not impact the total number, so we're going to do that right off the bat. Just so the board's aware, we've studied our share of affordable housing projects in suburban communities throughout the state of New Jersey, and the typical site at peak times has between 1.3 and 1.5 vehicles parked on the property. So if you look at that ratio, that puts you right around 100 vehicles parked on a site of this size. So we're more than confident that there's a significant number of vacant parking spaces even at peak time periods for this type of development. Again, because the residential site improvement standards were set up based on typical market rate units, and all the history has shown us that that income restricted type developments like this generally and typically have lesser vehicles parked on the site than your normal market rate units. So again, we're comfortable with the number of spaces, we're comfortable with the aisle widths, parking stall sizes, the sight lines at the driveway, the location of the driveway, the limited impact from the project on the surrounding roadways. And then I guess next I'll just go a little bit into the review letter unless you have a question.
I believe there was one question as to the distance from some of the parking spaces to the apartment building.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, so the furthest spaces are, say, 150 to 200 feet. There are a number of publications that we look into where they talk about how far parking spaces should be to the front door, whether it's residential, commercial, et cetera. Generally, what you like to do to get basically a very good walkable project has their parking spaces within 300 feet of the door. And these are all within 300. Actually, the furthest spaces, I think, are generally about 200 feet from the front door. So we're confident that this is a very walkable, and the way it's been designed with the parking in the middle and the buildings wrapping, we've essentially shortened that distance as much as possible by designing it this way.
And you had an opportunity to review the traffic engineering consultant for the board's memo dated July 25th, updated August 5th, 2019?
Yes.
And if there are any comments that we can't comply with, or at least would like to comment upon?
There were 3 that I wanted to comment on. So on page 2, at the top of the page, comment 1 just talks about, I think we transposed 2 of the numbers in our analysis. So we looked at that just to make sure it didn't make any difference, and it didn't. The next comment was number 3, and we're going to address that. The speed limit is 25 on Marlborough Road. Your traffic engineer felt the prevailing speeds were higher than the 25, so we're designing our site triangles for the driveway to accommodate a 40-mile-per-hour travel speed to be above that. It's, again, as I mentioned, we're at the crest of the vertical curve, so there's good sight lines in both directions, and we can meet that 40. The last comment was number 7, and there was some question as to possibly widening near the driveway to provide what I guess kind of announces the driveway. So a small little decel lane, a small little accel where we widen. We do have some utility poles that we need to work around in that instance, which obviously are cost generative to the project. So we're trying to avoid that, but I think we can do something there to get something that announces the driveway a little bit more right at the driveway. And I think that'll help the fire department as well with their access to the property. So I think we can work with your engineer and traffic engineer as to coming up with something at that entrance. And then the last section is all site plan related. And from what I understand, we're agreeing to make all those modifications.
Okay. Does our traffic, do you have any comments?
Yeah, the only other comment I really have is really the Marlborough Road widening. So when I looked at the plans, considering Marlborough Road is really 2 lanes, doesn't have a lot of, really has very nominal shoulders. I thought from a site identification, doing some type of limited widening at the access. So really, 1, identifies the driveway, and 2, does provide an area for people that can kind of pull off. I've been driving around actually the other night, long story short, I had to go into a housing development that I usually don't go into. And it was, again, a very similar 2-lane roadway. And they had a relatively short pull-off, and I thought it worked very well. But again, so I did a little bit more investigation, and it was about 75 feet long, the pull-off with a 50-foot taper. And I thought it worked very well because it just gave you enough time to get a vehicle over and get it out of the, travel lane. So that's kind of like what I was hoping to look for. I can work with the engineer on some of those parameters, regarding that. But I do think a little bit of widening would be ideal in this case.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the board regarding this testimony? Yes, Mr. Lauer.
I know you can't control every situation, but in the circulation, did you, on the 4 corner caps of the parking, the 4 outside of the recreation building, did you ever consider mountable curbing on that radius, on the 4 radiuses?
I just want to make sure I understood. So you're talking about where we really only have 3 that are islands. 1 has a sidewalk on it. But yeah, we can look at that. If that helps the fire department in getting their truck around, we can absolutely accommodate that.
Well, like I said, you can't, I guess, figure every situation, but I'm thinking mountable curb might help.
It's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, you considered a setback variance on the west side so that you could move your parking closer to the property line and increase the aisle width on that side.
I did not design the site plan, so maybe Joe can help me out with that one as far as I don't know what the setbacks are, so that isn't part of my purview.
Great comment.
But again, we meet all the requirements for the aisle widths, and I think with modifying some radii that we spoke of, we can more than accommodate that fire truck through the site.
Yes.
My question's actually from Ms. Strum. I know that this is just outside the location of the site, but I'm noticing on maps that that kind of triangle between Marlborough and East Greystone is very close to the site. I remember, I don't recall during which application, but Ms. Shapiro discussing how the stop sign, moving it to East Greystone would require DOT approval. It's a bad intersection. Is there any kind of update on the feasibility of that, or is that what this right-of-way is talking about?
Yeah, so if you look at the Township of Old Bridge has a circulation plan, which basically, envisions certain improvements, certain roadways, the ultimate right-of-way. One of those improvements or envisions is to take the paper street of Greystone Road and basically cut it through as a road. To basically to help the situation down, closer to Texas Road, because it is a little on the tight side down there. What my comment was is that the circulation plan identifies that as a 50-foot right-of-way. The actual existing right-of-way is 66 feet. So what I'm saying is there's no dedication that's required from this application, and that if the town ever moves forward on that relocation, meaning putting an actual physical roadway within that right-of-way, there's sufficient right-of-way that's going to be there.
I'm just talking about moving the stop sign.
Sorry, well,
That's okay.
Well, moving the stop sign is somewhat outside of this applicant's standpoint, because it's really more of a municipal. I think we talked about that with the office building at the corner, if I remember correctly.
Within that application.
I'm not sure if anything has been moved on regards to that, but again, a whole engineering study would have to be done, at the municipal level.
I'm just bringing it up because I understand it's outside the site, but it is close enough and it is tricky enough over there that I wanted to know if we had anything.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Merwin.
Probably for our attorney. Don't we have a ordinance that requires two distinct egress and egress?
No.
Yeah, that's covered by RSIS. So RSIS requires to meet that one ingress, one egress, or two access points. The boulevard actually meets that intent, and that's straight from RSIS. So the boulevard in of itself allows you to legally meet that two access requirement.
So if there's a gas leak on Marlborough Road at the entrance, they're going to count that as the two distinct in and outs? That was never, that's why I thought we had passed an ordinance, because we had this problem where people were stuck in their developments because of, gas or whatever, and, gas leaks, and they were stuck in their development until they were fixed. I thought we passed that ordinance. No? We should.
All right, anybody else? Okay, anyone from the public want to comment on this testimony? Okay, seeing no hands, I'll close that.
And then our last witness, our licensed professional planner, Christine Cafone. Oh, I'm sorry, was there a question?
No question.
Oh.
Excuse me, are you from, I closed the public part. Did you want to speak to the testimony that was just given?
I'm sorry, is this on? Sure.
I don't think so. Are you from the public?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to ask a question of the witness that just was about the traffic?
Traffic? No.
Okay. Then we're going to have another witness, and then I'll open it up for any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State and spell your name for the record, please.
It's Christine Nazzaro, Nazzaro, Cafone, Co, F as in Frank, One,
Business address is 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 200, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701.
Ms. Cofone, if you could please give for the board your education, experience, and qualifications in the field of professional planning.
Yes, good evening. I've been qualified as an expert witness in Old Bridge and about 435 other municipalities throughout the state of New Jersey. I am an affordable housing special master in about 25 different municipalities where I work for about 7 or 8 different judges throughout the state of New Jersey. I am an adjunct land use instructor for the Rutgers Center for Government Services where I teach planning and zoning courses. I teach at the Real Estate Institute at Kislak at Monmouth University. In addition to that,
thank you.
We're good. We're tapped out. Good.
And you're a licensed professional planner?
I am. My license is current and valid. I've been practicing for over 20 years. So, yeah, that's it.
And as part of this application, you and your office prepared a community impact statement that was submitted as part of the application?
We did. As a matter of for completeness, to have the application deemed complete, we prepared a community impact statement.
And you're also aware, as part of the application, we're seeking a variance for the monument sign location that Mr. Hanrahan testified to. So maybe if you can just testify as to that briefly, and then we can get to the question as to the school impacts.
Yes, both Mr. Hanrahan and Mr. Verderies, our traffic impact, talked about the traffic impact and the proposed sign. As Mr. Hanrahan testified, the sign is actually smaller than is required by ordinance. So there's nothing non-conforming with respect to the size of the sign, so it's certainly not going to create any visual clutter or any negative visual impacts. Really, the only issue is with the setback of the sign. And as you heard, we have an issue with a right-of-way dedication that we are giving along Marlborough Road. So could we set the sign back and conform? We could. Of course we could. You can see from, what do we have this marked as? Do we even have it marked? A2. So if you can see from A2 in evidence, we have sufficient place to push the sign back. The problem is if we do that, it's not going to be very effective. So this is what I would consider from a planning point of view, a textbook C2 variance, where in the absence of any real hardship. I mean, we do have the right-of-way dedication, which you could look at as a hardship, but really in the absence of any reason, it's a better zoning alternative to push the sign closer to the road. It will allow for, as Mr. Verderies testified, safer and more efficient traffic flow, which is one of the purposes, purpose H, of the municipal land use law. So I think the sign is appropriate in its size. Certainly it's smaller than ordinance requirements, as it's certainly appropriate in its location, and given the site constraints that we have, I think the board could certainly move that as a very de minimis. You could look at it as really under the C1 hardship criteria because of the right-of-way that we have to set it back, or in the absence, again, if you're not persuaded by the hardship, that it's really just a better zoning alternative to have it located where it is. And the standard of proof would have to be that we would have to advance one or more purposes of the municipal land use law. So here I think the board can rely on criteria I, which talks about a desirable visual environment, given that the sign proposed conforms to your ordinance with respect to dimensions, and criteria H, which talks about promoting the free flow of traffic, which both of our engineers, our site civil and our traffic engineering design team, have concluded that the sign as proposed, while somewhat de minimis and non-conforming, is really located in a safer location. So I think that certainly the statutory burden of proof exists for that sign. We did prepare the community impact statement, as Mr. Giannetti indicated. And one of the things before I really get into my findings with respect to public school-age children, just to set the tone for this is a very important project here in Elbridge, and I'll tell you why. Because back in 2017, there was a court-approved settlement of your affordable housing plan. These 72 units were in that plan in the configuration that they are proposed this evening with respect to the bedroom mix, the 1, 2, 3, and the very low income bedroom mix. So will there be children associated with this project? Yes, there will be, of course. Just like there will be with all of your other affordable housing projects, not only the affordable units, but the market rate units that go along with them as well. So this is not something that Old Bridge is unique in dealing with. These are constitutional affordable housing obligations. And I had an opportunity to read your planner's review letter on this application. I have an August 1st letter. I'm not sure if she issued a subsequent letter, if this is the date, if the date changed. But there's just...
It's August 1st.
on page, I can't read them. On page 4 of this August 1st review letter of Ms. Sawant, I'll read, "The Township of Old Bridge's Housing Element and Fair Share Plan was approved by the court by order dated June 19th of 2017." So Judge Wolfson approves that order back in June 19. "Pursuant to the court-approved HEFSP, that's Housing Element and Fair Share Plan, the subject property was slated for a municipally sponsored 100% affordable rental housing for families and/or disabled veterans. The proposed development to create a municipally sponsored 100 affordable rental housing for families and/or disabled veterans, therefore, is consistent with the court-approved 2015-2025 Housing Element and Fair Share Plan." Later on in her report, on page 6, she concludes, "The site layout for proposed lot 79.13, which is the application that's before you tonight, with the overall concept complies with the overall concept and vision for the 8H zone." So here you have a project that was a significant part of your housing plan, adopted in a court-approved settled plan. The application that you have before you is consistent and complies with the overall concept and vision for the 8H zone. So while we will certainly, and we did a multiplier that predicted 42 school-age children to be generated associated with this project from the years of the public school-age children from 5 to 17. And because this is a 100% affordable unit and we have no market rate units here, there are multipliers that you can use to break out those students and say, okay, some of them may go to private school. Because this is a 100% affordable project, we assumed 100% of the school-age children coming out of this project would go to public school. We looked at your enrollments for Old Bridge, and the 42 students comprise 0.004% of your current school-age population. So understand that some of your schools may be at capacity. I would say to the board, as an affordable housing special master, that certainly the school-age generation associated with this or any other inclusionary project, and this is not just an inclusionary project. So if we were before your zoning board of adjustment, we would be arguing this is an inherently beneficial use, because the case law is abundantly clear that when you have an inclusionary project, you can't argue it as is inherently beneficial. Inclusionary just means if we had 100 units and we were doing a 20% set aside, that's inclusionary. We're building affordable housing units. This is a different type of project. Mixed with market rate. This is different. This is a 100% affordable housing project. So this is a very important project. It's a very important part of your plan. I understand that there are traffic impacts, and certainly we need to satisfy your fire official. We would, we will work very hard. We have been working very hard to do that. We came up with a plan tonight to increase our parking on site by 2 parking spaces. So now we have an excess of 8 parking spaces. The case law is very clear when that you have an affordable housing project, we are not supposed to be imposing unnecessarily cost-generative features onto those projects. It's very clear that that would be contrary to the affordable housing statutes and laws and case law that govern in this state.
Is that especially so with 100% affordable, given the rents that are charged for an all-rental project as opposed to an inclusionary project that has a market rate component that subsidizes?
Absolutely, there is no offset. This is a 100% affordable project, so we are already providing 8 parking spaces beyond what RSIS requires. So I heard the suggestion before to grab some additional property and enlarge it, and I just think that given the fact that this is part of an adjudicated court-approved settlement, and we exceed the parking requirements per RSIS, which is the governing doctrine, I find it very difficult to think that that would be something that should be imposed on this application. The other thing that I heard was about the laundry, and I understand, I certainly understand that, but again, like so many things that we see before us in land use, it's a balancing act. These veterans, as well as these affordable families, will also have access on site to a community center with a fitness center and a parcel room. So it's a balancing, and they will have on site at the place they live the ability to do their laundry. So, I understand that, but, and I think Mr. Truslow testified that operationally, we do have the ability to locate those units who may potentially be occupied with disabled persons closest to the amenity package. But I think on point, this is really a solid plan. It is, again, part of your settlement, and I think certainly it should be approved as such. It needs de minimis variance relief, if any at all, with respect to the sign, and I think it's certainly an appropriate project. Like I said, if we were before the zoning board, this would be an inherently beneficial use. There is no doubt that 100% affordable projects are inherently beneficial uses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any from the board? Have any questions? Okay. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with Ms. Caffone. When I presented the plan in front of the planning board, I had explained that in 2017, when the code approved our plan, there were 2 sites which were slated for 100% municipally sponsored project. One was the Marlborough Road site, and the other one was Lawrence Parkway site. I know there was a lot of discussion about disabled veterans, and our 2017 court-approved plan had disabled veterans and families included in the plan. So that was approved by the court more than the redevelopment plan. So we just carried it in the redevelopment plan. At the time of the court approval, we had a different developer. We had RPM in picture, and they were the assigned redevelopers. Now, the court-approved plan was from 2015 to 2025. Typically, when there is a 100% municipally sponsored project, the expectation is that within the first 2 years of the court approval, there is at least groundbreaking. Now, we are almost in the middle of the 10-year period. Since then, RPM is out of the picture. Now we have a plan in place to replace or take care of those 72 affordable units. So the disabled veterans was not really a part of the Vista at Old Bridge. It actually was carried from our court-approved plan. So originally, even RPM was slated for 72 affordable units for families or disabled veterans. So I know there was some question as to why have preference for disabled veterans, but it actually came from the court-approved plan.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that just wants to comment on this testimony? Oh, yes.
I understand your point about unnecessary cost-bearing measures, and I understand that when you're looking at an affordable housing project, a blinged-out, like, LEED certified building is not necessarily like what would work to fit this vision. But like, I do have to really wonder about, when we're talking about like amenities and things like that, if having like a fitness center, for example, while a great thing, wouldn't provide a better quality of life than access to in-unit laundry for people who may be dealing with disabilities. And I'm not even saying that if it's Richmond's preference to not provide in-unit laundry, or if it's cost prohibitive to do so, is there something else? Like, is there an arrangement where if disabled persons are placed at the center, there can be assistance or something, like even if we can't accommodate in unit, if there's something else?
I think that's Mr. Truzlo.
Yeah, Mr. Truzlo can address that.
And an operational question. Sure.
As Ms. Caffone was stating again, it's a balance, as this is, and you heard the rents that are charged for this. This is an all-affordable project, so it doesn't have a market rate component generating a subsidy. If there was no low-income housing tax credits to apply for, this could not be built. The clubhouse, the apartments themselves couldn't be built, given the rents that are charged. So they have to go out and hunt for money just to be able to build something like this.
Yeah, I understand.
So it's all these amenities are great, and they love to do everything for them, but again, as an all-affordable project, there are limits on what they can do. Now, with respect to the comments we heard tonight, I know Mr. Truzlo talked to the architect and with other projects about being able to, at least with those first floor units, to be able to put in washer and dryer units. I think he'll be able to address that.
We've looked at...
Let's step up.
I agree with the washer dryer issue in terms of the first floor and traveling to the community room. I looked with the architect at a break. We have a space I think in all 3 unit types on 1, 2s, and 3s, so we'll rough in plumbing in every first floor unit, and if we get somebody that requires in unit washer dryer, we'll put it in. That's the end of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that has any comment from the board? If not, the public, anything regarding that testimony? Okay, anything other than that? Okay, what happened to that lady? She disappeared. All right. Yeah, did you want to speak on this project?
I was just going to reiterate, I'm sorry, Jill Callie, I'm the president of the Old Bridge Board of Education. I was going to reiterate the question that our business administrator had asked about the school, but basically I believe the planner asked, there is no answer, there was no consideration given. That particular school is at capacity. If it remains at capacity, when you're advertising the apartment complex, it should probably be noted to the people that are going to apply to live there that their children will not be going to the closest school to where they'll be living.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public portion. And do we have anything else from our professionals? Okay. I just want to say that, as I said before, that this project has been in the thoughts and even on the books for a number of years that the housing authority, have been looking to do a project like this, and now we have someone aboard that is able to perform. And I think the fact that we're able to provide affordable housing without getting 200 or 300 market units, which would provide a lot more kids to the school system, is a real plus for our community. And the fact that there was always to be a consideration for disabled veterans, but also families, because we need housing that accommodates families. And these do provide 3-bedroom units, and 2-bedroom, which would allow families to move into our community. So I am totally in support of it, and I think if you can address the washer-dryer situation, it will certainly make us feel more comfortable in terms of being able to really be welcoming to people that are disabled and want to take this.
Council President?
What?
Make a comment?
Yeah, I'm just finishing.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, so I'm in support of it, and I intend to vote for it, and I'm really glad to see it finally becoming a reality. Yes.
Thank you, Council President. I do want to thank you for stepping up for that consideration for the veterans. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Kelly, do you want to just read?
Okay, this is the application is for a subdivision and for preliminary and final site plan approval. There's one variance for the setback for the sign, technical variance because of the right-of-way dedication, but it is a variance. There are 2 waivers being requested also, the size of the parking stalls and the size of some of the sidewalks. The applicant has agreed to comply with almost everything else in all of the planning, engineering, and traffic reports, and has agreed to continue to work with the fire marshal to ensure that the fire access is appropriate and safe for what is needed there.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Marucci, seconded by... Okay, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The washer-dryer issue pushed me to a yes. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I would also like to thank you for hearing us and thinking about the quality of life of the people who will be living there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
For the board members, because this was a special situation with the affordable housing, and because, as I talked about, there are tax credits, they actually need to get that application in by the first or second week of September in order to qualify for those tax credits. So I was
I'll
asked
move it.
to provide a written resolution in anticipation of a possible affirmative vote that is on each of your stations there. It includes the conditions that the applicant comply with all the reports, and it also includes a condition that they comply with all other things that they've agreed to change during the course of this hearing, and that it will be up to Venus Swan, our planner, to ensure that they do comply with them. So if there was anything that was mentioned that was in addition to something that was in a report that I had prior to the hearing, that is covered by that sort of catch-all condition in the resolution.
Like the plumbing on the first floor for the,
So, right, so what I'm saying, it's, that catch-all is in there. What Rena and I will do is, after this hearing, we'll make our own list to make sure we catch it all. We're also going to have a transcript, so we'll be able to go back and read all that. So it's not going to be a mystery, it's all going to be in there. And we do have that catch-all phrase to make sure that we cover everything that was discussed and agreed to at the hearing. Okay.
Ms. Carey, if I can comment,
Yeah.
regarding to the resolution, I just want, for the record, we had an updated report dated August 5th, 2019. I just want to clarify that.
No, that's correct. I didn't have that this morning when
And
I
that's
did the, so we will change on the resolution. The traffic report is dated August 5th, not, I think it was the 1st on there. So with that change.
I'll move the resolution.
Okay, moved by Mr. Merwin, second? Seconded by Mr. Schmidt. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board. We need a break. And the TV is going to be going off shortly.